Before we dive into today's story, get ready for an emotional journey of healing, mystery, and unexpected love. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead as Kayla Monroe walked down the immaculate white corridors of Ashton Valley Private Hospital. She'd worked here for nearly 2 years. But this morning felt different, offbeat in a way she couldn't shake. It started with the unexpected page summoning her to Dr. Leland's office. The department head for neurology. She wasn't due for a performance review, and no one had mentioned a change in staffing. As she reached the polished mahogany door, her stomach tightened with a strange mix of anticipation and dread. "Come in," a voice called from inside. Dr. Leland stood near the window, hands folded behind his back, eyes fixed on the horizon. The office smelled faintly of disinfectant and worn leather, and the air inside was heavier than usual. Kayla stepped in, heart thudding quietly. "Kayla," he said without turning. His voice was calm, but serious. "We have a special case. A patient who needs full-time care. But it's not for the faint of heart." She furrowed her brows. "What kind of patient?" He gestured toward the thick manila folder on his desk. "Jordan Wells." The name made her blink. Jordan Wells? Even before opening the file, she recognized it. Everyone had heard of him. The newspaper clipping attached to the file confirmed it. A mangled car. An accident off the edge of a coastal highway. A year ago, the youngest self-made millionaire in the city had driven off a bridge and fallen into a coma. He had once been a dominant force, brilliant, relentless, and untouchable. At just 33, he had built Wells Innovations into a tech empire. But after the crash, the world had moved on. Jordan Wells had become a forgotten name, tucked away in a private hospital suite and barely spoken of since. His family visits on occasion, Dr. Leland said, breaking the silence, but not often. Most of the staff just do what's required. But he needs more than that now. He needs someone who gives a damn. Kayla swallowed hard, closing the folder slowly. "You think that someone is me?" Dr. Leland nodded. "I do." Her fingers tightened slightly on the file. It was a daunting responsibility. He might never wake up. He might remain in that state for years. But something in her gut told her to say yes. "I'll take the assignment," she said quietly. Dr. Leland gave a small approving nod. "Your shift begins tonight." The private suite on the top floor felt more like a 5-star hotel room than a hospital unit. Dark oak furniture filled the space, and heavy curtains framed the wide windows. In the middle of the room, surrounded by machines and silence, lay Jordan Wells. Kayla stood at the doorway for a long moment, taking him in. Even after all this time, there was a strength to him, a raw, unresolved intensity beneath the stillness. His jaw was sharp, dark lashes fanned gently across pale cheeks, and his chest rose and fell with the soft rhythm of the ventilator. She approached quietly, setting down her bag and gathering a clean cloth and a basin of warm water. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dipped the cloth and began to gently clean his arm. A strange sensation tickled her spine, like static electricity brushing her nerves. It felt, somehow, like he knew she was there. She shook the thought away and continued. "You don't get a say in this." "I'm afraid," she murmured softly. "Guess I'll just pretend you agreed." Silence. She smiled faintly despite herself. The days that followed developed into a rhythm. Mornings and nights, she would bathe him, monitor his vitals, adjust his linens. But gradually, her role became more than medical. She found herself talking to him about the weather, about the terrible hospital coffee, about the lives of patients he'd never meet. "You should hear the cafeteria complaints. Jordan, I swear someone called the lasagna a war crime." No response. "Of course. And yet I keep talking," she added with a chuckle. "Maybe I just like the sound of my own voice." Still, silence. Or maybe not. Sometimes the heart monitor would spike slightly when she spoke. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe not. She kept talking. One evening, as she leaned over to gently wipe his brow, her hand brushed the line of his jaw. Just then, she noticed the faintest twitch of his finger. She froze. Was it real? A reflex? Had she imagined it? A few more days passed. Then it happened again. She was adjusting the pillows when she felt it, a light pressure against her wrist. Her heart stopped. "Jordan?" she whispered. Nothing. Stillness. But something was changing. She felt it in the room's atmosphere, in the way the hairs on her neck stood up whenever she touched him. She reported it to Dr. Leland. He moved, she said, sitting across from him. He raised a skeptical brow. Kayla, involuntary reflexes aren't uncommon in coma patients. I know, but it wasn't like that. It felt intentional. He sighed, then gave in. All right, we'll run a few tests. The results surprised even him. There's increased neurological activity, he told her. It's not conclusive, but it's significant. Something's shifting. It wasn't the confirmation she wanted, but it was enough. That night, sitting beside Jordan again, she leaned close to his ear. I don't know if you can hear me, she whispered, but I think you do. And with that, she told him about her life. Her childhood in a small mountain town. Her dreams of becoming a nurse. Her first heartbreak. Her favorite books. The things she hadn't said to anyone in years. And somewhere deep inside, Jordan Wells was listening. Morning light filtered into the room. Golden and quiet. The machines continued their steady rhythm. Kayla rolled up her sleeves, ready to begin the routine. I've decided I'm getting a dog, she told him playfully. Someone around here has to listen to me. No response. She dipped the cloth in warm water and began to wipe his chest. Then something changed. His hand shifted. She froze. His fingers tightened around her wrist. Kayla's breath hitched in her throat. Her eyes widened. Then, Jordan's eyes opened. For a heartbeat, time stopped. Kayla couldn't move. For months, she had spoken into silence, waited through stillness. Now, those storm blue eyes she had only seen closed were staring right back at her. His gaze was disoriented, confused, but it was awake. The cloth slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a wet slap. Her heart was pounding in her ears. Jordan? She whispered, barely able to speak. His lips parted. The voice that came out was barely audible, raspy and dry, but it was real. Where? Her hand flew to the emergency call button and slammed it. Alarms blared in the hallway. Within seconds, a team of nurses and doctors poured into the room, led by Dr. Leland. What happened? He barked. Hurrying to Jordan's bedside, Kayla stood frozen, her voice trembling. He grabbed my hand. He opened his eyes. He spoke. Dr. Leland leaned over Jordan, shining a penlight into his pupils, checking his vitals as chaos erupted around the room. Orders flew. Machines beeped. Everyone moved with urgency. But Jordan's gaze kept drifting back to her. Through the blur of tests, wires, and questions, he found her in the crowd. He looked straight at her, as if somehow, she was the only thing grounding him. Jordan, she said gently, stepping forward. Do you remember anything? He blinked slowly, his brow furrowing. There was a long silence. Then, in a voice still raw and hesitant, he murmured, I don't know who you are, but I feel like I should. Her breath caught. A strange, quiet chill rippled through her. Even without memories, he felt her. The next few days were a whirlwind. Doctors from across the state wanted to observe his case. Neurologists ran every scan and test imaginable. Nurses rotated in and out of his suite. But no one could explain how a man who had been unresponsive for a full year had just woken up with coherent speech and physical motor control. Kayla stayed close, not because it was part of the job anymore, but because something in her refused to leave him. Jordan's recovery, physically at least, was progressing faster than expected. Within days, he was sitting up in bed, able to feed himself soft meals, answering short questions, but mentally, emotionally, he was wrestling with a fog he couldn't shake. What's the last thing you remember? Dr. Leland asked during one of their sessions. Jordan rubbed his temples. I don't know, just bits, pieces. Tell me about them. He exhaled slowly. I remember rain, headlights. Something felt wrong, off. I was driving. Kayla, standing quietly by the window, turned at that. Jordan's fingers gripped the sheets tightly. I remember trying to steer. The brakes, they didn't work. Dr. Leland scribbled notes, but Kayla didn't move. Her heart was thudding now. There was someone, Jordan added, his voice lower, on the side of the road, watching. His breath quickened, and then it just goes black. Dr. Leland looked up. It's common for trauma victims to suppress painful memories. But that's a promising start. But Kayla didn't hear him. Her thoughts were already racing. Brakes that didn't work? A person watching? It echoed what she had seen in his accident file, but this time it wasn't a theory. He had felt it too. That night, after her shift ended, Kayla found herself back in the hospital's basement archives. She combed through the accident reconstruction report for the third time. And there it was. Not worn out, not malfunctioned, tampered. The brakes hadn't failed by accident. Someone wanted Jordan Wells dead. A cold wave washed over her as she clutched the file tighter. She had to tell him. Jordan was sitting up in bed when she returned. Flipping through a crossword puzzle a nurse had left him. He looked up the moment she entered, his eyes lighting up in that subtle way they did whenever he saw her. "Hey," he said, voice stronger than it had been just days ago. "Hey," she replied, walking toward him with the file in hand. "You okay?" he asked, sensing something in her tone. She hesitated, then nodded slightly and handed him the file. "I went back through your crash report." Jordan opened the file slowly, scanning the highlighted section. His eyes narrowed. "Tampered?" he said aloud, then looked at her, as in, "Someone did this?" Kayla nodded. "It wasn't an accident, Jordan. Someone rigged your car to crash. And you saw someone watching when it happened." He leaned back slowly, trying to process it. His hand ran through his hair, and the color drained from his face. "Who would do something like that?" he muttered. "We don't know," she said, "but we can find out." His eyes met hers again. "Why are you helping me with this?" Kayla paused. Then, softly, she said, "Because someone has to." In the following days, they worked quietly, pouring through emails, company records, bank statements, and anything that Jordan could remember or piece together. Kayla helped him access his old laptop, his financials, and even internal messages from Wells Innovations. And then they found it. A payment, large, suspicious, wired days before the crash. The recipient? A known criminal tied to several staged car accidents. The sender? No other than Elliot Wells, Jordan's half-brother. The room fell into stunned silence. Jordan stared at the screen, unmoving. "He always hated me," he said quietly. "Said I stole everything from him. That I got the business. The name, the spotlight." Kayla's voice was barely a whisper. "He tried to erase you." Jordan clenched his fists. "Then I'll make sure he doesn't get away with it." That evening, the two of them arrived at the Wells estate, an expansive, cold mansion that Jordan once called home. Elliot was in the study, a glass of whiskey in his hand, seated like a king in his lair. When he saw Jordan walk in, he smiled, too easily. Well, Elliot drawled. "The Coma King returns." Jordan didn't waste time. "Why'd you do it?" Elliot's smile faded. "Don't act like you don't know. You tried to kill me." Elliot sipped his drink. "I just sped up the inevitable." Kayla stepped forward. "For what? The company? Your ego?" Elliot's face twisted. "For everything you took from me." Before he could say another word, the study door burst open. Two detectives stepped in, badges out. "Elliot Wells, you're under arrest for attempted murder." Elliot turned in shock. "You set me up." Jordan didn't flinch. "You set yourself up." As Elliot was handcuffed and dragged away, the room fell into silence. Jordan finally exhaled. For the first time since waking up, he was free. The night was warm. The stars scattered like diamonds across the sky. And for the first time since the crash, Jordan Wells wasn't thinking about pain, betrayal, or the weight of everything he had lost. He was thinking about her. The hospital garden felt like a world away from the chaos of his past. Trees rustled gently in the breeze. Soft lights lined the walking path. And beside him, Kayla Monroe walked slowly, her arm gently linked through his, guiding him not as a nurse, but as something else entirely. Neither of them spoke at first. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was easy, comfortable. Jordan breathed in the cool air. "I didn't realize how much I missed this," he said. Kayla glanced at him. "What, the outdoors?" He chuckled softly. "No, life." She smiled. "You're getting it back." They stopped near a stone bench beneath an old elm tree. Moonlight shimmered across Kayla's face, and Jordan felt his heart hitch in a way that had nothing to do with recovery. There was something in the way she looked at him, soft but strong. like she saw every scar and didn't flinch. I keep thinking, Jordan said slowly, how I could have died without ever knowing you. Kayla blinked, caught off guard by his words. I don't remember my life before the accident, he continued, but somehow, being with you, it feels like the most real thing I've got. Her breath caught. Jordan? He reached for her hand. I don't know when it started. Maybe it was the first time you talked to me while I was asleep. Maybe it was when you refused to stop believing I'd wake up. But Kayla, he paused, looking straight into her eyes. I trust you, more than anyone. She swallowed hard, emotion swelling in her chest. For so long, she'd cared for him in silence, never expecting anything in return. And now, he was looking at her like she was his entire world. The moment hung between them, fragile and electric. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Jordan knew. And for now, that was enough. But the peace didn't last. That night, Jordan tossed and turned in his bed. His body was tired, but his mind was on fire. Flashes of memory hit him like lightning, fragments crashing through the dam in his mind. The road, rain, headlights bearing down, his hands gripping the wheel. The scream of tires, the brakes, failing. And then, a figure, standing on the side of the road, watching as his car spun out and launched into darkness. Jordan's eyes snapped open, breath ragged, chest heaving. It hadn't just been a suspicion. It was real. Someone had tried to kill him. The next morning, Kayla entered the suite and immediately knew something was wrong. Jordan was already sitting up, his hands clenched, jaw tight. Jordan? She asked cautiously. What happened? He looked up, his eyes sharp, alert. I remembered. She moved closer. The accident? He nodded slowly. It wasn't a blur this time. I saw it. I saw everything. The road, the rain, the brakes. And someone was there, watching. Her chest tightened. Are you sure? I'd swear on it. It wasn't just a theory anymore. Kayla, someone wanted me dead. Kayla sat beside him. We need to tell Dr. Leland. The police. Everyone. I already did, Jordan said. But more than that, I need to know why. Why would Elliot go that far? She could feel the frustration in his voice. The betrayal still fresh, still raw. I don't know, she said honestly, but I'll help you find out. His shoulders dropped slightly, like the weight of the night had finally cracked through. I'm glad it's you. And for the second time, he reached for her hand, not in fear, not in pain, but in trust. In the following days, Jordan threw himself into recovery with new energy. Physical therapy sessions became grueling. Every step he took was powered by determination. I can't do this, he muttered one afternoon, gripping the bars in the rehab center as his legs trembled beneath him. Yes, you can, Kayla said, standing beside him, her tone steady. He looked at her, sweat beading at his temple. You've made it this far. Jordan, you survived a crash, a coma, and your own brother's betrayal. You're not quitting on this. He exhaled hard, then took another step, and another. By the time he reached the end of the bars, Kayla's smile was wide, glowing with pride. He looked at her and smiled, not because he had to, but because for the first time in a long time, he felt alive again. That night, she found him in the hospital garden again. He was walking now, no wheelchair, no cane, slower than before, but stronger. You're pushing yourself, Kayla said with a half smile. Jordan grinned. I've got a good reason. They walked together beneath the moonlight once more. But this time, something had shifted between them. He wasn't just a patient anymore. And she wasn't just his nurse. They were something more. When they reached the bench, Jordan turned to her. You know, I was a different man before all this. I don't remember much, but I feel it. What do you mean? She asked softly. I think I used to take things for granted. People, time. My life was about profit margins and power plays. He looked at her, more serious now. But this, what I feel now, what I feel with you, none of that mattered before. Kayla's heart ached in her chest. His vulnerability made her fall harder than she already had. I don't want to lose that, he said. She reached up, gently touching his cheek. You won't. And then, slowly, carefully, he leaned in. Their lips met, tentative at first, soft and searching, but soon it deepened into something neither of them had expected. A kiss built not from impulse, but from everything they'd survived. When they pulled apart, Jordan pressed his forehead to hers and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Kayla closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his words settle deep in her soul. "I never could." The next morning, sunlight poured through the hospital window, casting golden lines across the polished floor. Jordan Wells stood at the window, arms crossed, lost in thought. Kayla Monroe entered quietly, her eyes scanning his frame. He looked stronger, healthier, but there was a tension in his posture, a tightness she hadn't seen before. "Rough night?" she asked gently. He turned. "I couldn't sleep." "The memory again?" He nodded. "But this time, it was clearer. I didn't just see the crash, I saw something else. A detail I hadn't noticed before." Kayla's eyes narrowed slightly. "What was it?" "There was a man," Jordan said, his voice low, standing near the side of the road. He wasn't running. He wasn't shocked. He was watching, like he knew. Kayla felt her stomach turn. "You think he was involved?" "I think he orchestrated the whole thing." Jordan walked to the bedside table and pulled out a folder he'd been hiding. He handed it to Kayla. "I asked the hospital's legal team to pull every file related to my accident. Financials, police reports, company memos, everything." Kayla flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning each document. Then she stopped. "Jordan," she whispered, This is a wire transfer." "Exactly. $500,000, sent just 2 days before my crash." She stared at the name of the recipient, Anthony Vega, a known criminal with ties to staged vehicle incidents. Her pulse quickened. "Who sent it?" Jordan hesitated. "It came from one of my private accounts, but I never approved it." Kayla's eyes widened. "So someone used your access?" "Someone close," Jordan said, "and there's only one person who ever had that kind of clearance." He didn't need to say it. The name was already on her lips. Elliot, Jordan's half-brother. The one who had taken over the company after the crash. The one who had visited him exactly once during the coma. The one who had everything to gain if Jordan didn't survive. Kayla set the folder down. "What do we do?" "We confront him," Jordan said, eyes steely, face to face. Later that evening, the Carter estate glowed under soft lighting, its towering glass windows reflecting the setting sun. Kayla stepped out of the car beside Jordan, her hand gently gripping his as they walked up the familiar stone steps. This place once represented Jordan's power, his past. Now it was the scene of betrayal. Elliot waited in the study, lounging in a leather armchair, a crystal glass of bourbon in hand. When Jordan and Kayla entered, he didn't rise. "Well," Elliot said with a half-smile, "look who rose from the dead." Jordan didn't respond. He crossed the room slowly, placing the folder on the desk between them. "You sent this transfer," Jordan said coldly. Elliot's smile froze. His eyes flicked down to the folder. "Don't play dumb," Jordan added. "The account was mine. The authorization code was yours. Anthony Vega didn't stage a crash for free." Elliot exhaled, setting his drink down. "You were never supposed to find out." Kayla stepped forward. "You tried to kill your own brother." Elliot's expression twisted. "You don't get it. You've always had everything. Jordan. The name. The company. Dad's legacy. I was just the shadow. So you decided to erase me?" Jordan's voice was low, almost shaking. "I didn't want to erase you." Elliot sneered. "I just wanted a chance. You were unstoppable, always ahead. I thought if I could just get you out of the way, you'd finally matter." Jordan finished, bitterly. Elliot shrugged, his face empty now. "And I did, for a while. But the moment shattered when 2 uniformed officers stepped through the doorway." Elliot spun around, panic rising. "What the hell is this?" "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder," one officer announced. "You have the right to remain silent." "You set me up," Elliot roared as they cuffed him. "No," Jordan said calmly. "You did that all by yourself." As Elliot was dragged away, screaming hollow threats, silence returned to the study. Jordan stood still for a long moment, then finally turned to Kayla. "It's over." She reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. "Not over, just beginning." The next few weeks passed in a blur. With Elliot behind bars, Jordan's name was cleared. The board welcomed him back, though he was different now, quieter, more thoughtful. He didn't rush back into meetings or boardrooms. He took his time. He was learning how to live again. And every day, Kayla was there, smiling at his victories, holding him through his setbacks, reminding him why he'd fought so hard to come back. One evening, he invited her to the estate for dinner. Kayla stepped into the dining hall, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. The lights were dimmed, candles flickered on a small, intimate table by the window. A bottle of wine chilled beside two plates. Rose petals dusted the center of the table like snow. Her breath caught. "Jordan?" He stepped out from the adjoining room, dressed in a fitted navy suit. His smile was soft, nervous. "Dinner," he said, "just us." Kayla walked slowly toward him. "This looks like something out of a movie." "I had help," he admitted sheepishly. "Turns out, I'm not great with candles." She laughed. "I'm impressed." They sat down, the tension melting with each passing moment. The air was filled with quiet music, the clinking of glasses, the scent of roses. But halfway through the meal, Jordan grew quiet. He leaned forward, his fingers brushing hers. "Do you know," he said softly, "how many people walked away while I was in that coma?" Kayla swallowed. "Too many." "But you didn't," he said, eyes locking on hers. "You were there, every day, when I couldn't speak, when I couldn't move, when everyone else gave up, you didn't." Kayla's eyes stung. She tried to speak, but he held up a hand. "Let me finish," he said gently. He pulled something from his pocket. A small velvet box. Kayla gasped. "I don't remember everything about who I was before," Jordan said, his voice trembling. "But I know who I am now. And I know that none of it matters without you." He opened the box. Inside sat a delicate ring, an oval-cut diamond set in a slender platinum band. "Kayla Monroe," he said, standing slowly, "you saved me in every way a person can be saved. Will you marry me?" Her hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide, heart racing. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded, her voice breaking. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Jordan slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms, holding her like the answer to every question he'd ever had. Their lips met in a kiss that was soft, deep, and full of promise. And as the night wrapped them in quiet warmth, they knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the Carter estate, bathing the halls in golden light. Everything about the day felt different, full of meaning, full of promise. It was the day Kayla Monroe would become Kayla Wells. The estate gardens had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. White roses lined the aisle, twinkling string lights draped overhead, and a string quartet played soft music as guests took their seats under the gentle summer sky. Kayla stood inside the grand foyer, her fingers nervously clutching her bouquet. Her maid of honor, her best friend Riley, smiled beside her. "You ready?" Riley whispered. Kayla took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I've never been more sure of anything." The doors opened, and soft music floated in. As Kayla stepped onto the white carpet, all sound seemed to vanish. Because there, at the end of the aisle, stood Jordan. He wore a black tuxedo, his dark hair slightly tousled, his blue eyes locked on hers. His expression wasn't just one of love, it was reverence. Awe, like he was watching the most beautiful moment of his life unfold. Kayla walked slowly, each step filled with emotion, her eyes never leaving his. By the time she reached him, her heart was pounding, but her smile never wavered. Jordan reached out, gently taking her hands. "You're stunning," he whispered. "You're not so bad yourself," she replied, grinning through tears. The officiant began to speak, but neither of them heard much. Their eyes were locked, hearts pounding, minds full of memories, hospital rooms, whispered conversations, secrets uncovered, and the slow, unshakable love that had formed through it all. "Do you, Jordan Wells, take Kayla Monroe to be your wife?" "I do," Jordan said without hesitation. "And do you, Kayla Monroe, take Jordan Wells to be your husband?" "I do," she whispered. "With the power vested in me," the officiant declared, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Jordan leaned in, cupping her face, and kissed her with all the love he had held in his heart, through darkness, through uncertainty, through recovery, and now, into a new life. The crowd erupted into cheers. But for Kayla and Jordan, The world fell away. It was just them, and it always had been. Later that evening, they stood together on the rooftop of the estate, the city lights stretching out before them like stars on the ground. Kayla leaned against the balcony, her white gown glowing in the moonlight. Jordan came up behind her, slipping his arms around her waist. "Think we surprised everyone?" he asked, nuzzling her neck. "Considering half your board was crying, I'd say yes." They both laughed, the kind of laugh that felt light and easy, the kind that only comes when every weight has finally been lifted. Jordan turned her gently to face him. "I meant what I said. You know, about you saving me." She touched his cheek. "You saved yourself. I just stayed with you while you did it. I was in a coma. Kayla, you were still fighting. I could feel it." He smiled, his eyes softening. "Then we fought together, like we always will." They stayed like that for a while, the silence between them as comforting as a promise. And then Jordan reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a folded letter. Kayla raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" He handed it to her. "It's something I started writing the day I woke up. I didn't know why I was writing it then. But now, I do." Kayla unfolded it slowly, eyes scanning the words. "To the woman I may never remember, but somehow already know. I don't know your name yet. I don't know your story. But I feel you every time someone speaks. Every time someone touches my hand. There's warmth when you're in the room. Safety. If I wake up, and you're there, I'll know I'm okay. If you're reading this now, it means you stayed. Underscore. And if you stayed, underscore. Then maybe that means I already love you. Underscore." Kayla's vision blurred with tears. "Jordan?" He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "I wrote that before I even knew your name. Before I remembered your voice. But somehow, part of me always knew it was you. I never stopped talking to you." She whispered, "Even when you couldn't answer." "I heard every word," he murmured. "I just couldn't answer back. But I wanted to, every day." The wind danced softly around them. The city below glowed with life. But up here, there was only love. Deep, lasting, life-altering love. Months passed. Life returned to a new kind of normal. Jordan stepped back into Carter Enterprises. But this time, he didn't bury himself in work. He built a new branch of the company focused on medical technology, partnering with hospitals to support patients with long-term care needs. Inspired by the very people who had saved his life, Kayla continued nursing, but her role evolved. She became an advocate for coma care support programs, sharing her experience with families who had lost hope. Together, they didn't just survive the storm, they built something beautiful from it. One Saturday morning, as they sat on the back porch of the estate, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise, Jordan turned to Kayla with a sparkle in his eye. "I was thinking." She raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous. Maybe we get a dog?" Kayla laughed. "That's not what I expected. I mean, you did say you needed someone to talk to while I was unconscious." She smiled warmly. "You've made up for the silence." He reached over, lacing his fingers through hers. "You're the reason I made it out. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw you waiting for me. And now?" She whispered. "I opened my eyes, and you're still there. That's everything." They leaned in, their foreheads touching, and sat in quiet gratitude. Because they knew that love isn't always born from fireworks or fairy tales. Sometimes it grows in hospital rooms, in whispered words, in the moments no one sees. And that kind of love? It's the kind that lasts forever. The end. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Tellinight. At Tellinight, stories remind us that healing begins with hope. And even the gentlest kindness can rewrite a destiny. Don't forget to tap the bell so you never miss a story that could brighten your day or transform your perspective. Until our next story, keep your heart open and your spirit brave.